Picture this. You're taking a step on a mountain slope, just another step, maybe your thousandth that night. Then suddenly, there's nothing under your feet. You're falling, weightless, swallowed by darkness. You're 6,000 meters up on Nanga Parbat, known as the Killer Mountain, one of the deadliest peaks on the planet. Klára Kolouchová had just made the right call. She turned back at 7,300 meters. She didn't go for the summit because her body sent the warning signs. It was the smart choice, textbook stuff. But in the mountains, doing everything right doesn't always save you. She was the first Czech woman on Everest, the first on K2. She climbed Kangchenjunga and Annapurna. She's a mother of two, a national icon. Fame was never what she was after. She was chasing air. Born in Prague, studied in London, working her way up the career ladder, she did everything right. But it felt suffocating. The office gave her stability. Family gave her meaning, her career, a future. But deep inside, something was growing. A hunger for altitude, for pushing limits, for something real. K2 took 3 tries, 2 failures, then a third attempt that changed everything. She climbed Annapurna without acclimatization, tackled Kangchenjunga just 2 months before K2. The death zone became her workspace. This is a story about choosing to live without compromise, about the price that the strongest among us pay, and about how sometimes a single second changes everything. To understand how she got to that moment, you have to go back to where it all began, to a young girl in Prague who had no idea she'd one day stay on Nanga Parbat forever. Prague, September 1978. In a family where books mattered more than TV, and travel wasn't a luxury, but just how you lived, a little girl was born who would become the first Czech woman to summit Everest, but nobody knew that yet. Klára grew up with opportunities that weren't common for everyone in Czechoslovakia at the time: languages, a European-level education, a wide-open view of the world. She wasn't a dreamer or a rebel in school, just laser-focused, disciplined, analytical. Her teachers saw a future manager or economist in her. They weren't wrong. By 2000, Klára graduated from Anglo-American University in Prague, one of the country's first private business schools following Western standards. She stepped into the corporate world full of systems, plans, and the usual logic of a steady career. Everything was by the book, but by the time she turned 23, something inside her started breaking. The office brought stability, a paycheck, the promise of moving up. But it didn't bring real purpose. Klára started to realize she was doing all the right things, but feeling all the wrong things. It was like she was living someone else's life, her body and mind craving something different, something raw and uncompromising, not spreadsheets and meetings. The signs showed up quietly. She got into fitness, wanted to go further, for longer, outside her comfort zone. She started running, and then running more, running farther. Inside her, a strange mix started to form. The discipline from business school and this growing need to test herself. She didn't know it yet, but that combination was going to lead her straight to the 8,000ers. But the wheels are already turning. Klára isn't rebelling. She just realizes that office life isn't the whole picture, and she starts looking for a way out. That way out appears in 2003, and it's in London. Klára moves to the British capital and gets a job in PR and communications. So, it's another office, another corporate environment, but now it's in one of the most fast-paced cities in Europe. By day, she's at her computer, typing up press releases and managing clients. By night, she throws on her sneakers and goes running along the Thames. An hour, sometimes 2, occasionally longer. For the first time ever, it feels like she's living a double life. Daytime Klára is one person. Evening Klára is someone else entirely. And the longer she lives in London, the clearer it gets. The city isn't inspiring her. It's weighing her down. It's not giving, it's draining. Millions of people, endless career opportunities, restaurants, museums, all the stuff that's supposed to make you happy, at least according to the self-help books. But on the inside, just this growing feeling of being trapped. Can you imagine? You get everything you thought you wanted, all the textbook ingredients for happiness, but what you actually feel is emptiness. And it's right there, in the middle of this, that Klára starts training for high-altitude expeditions. Not as a casual hobby, not for the Instagram shots. She's training with total focus, as if she's gearing up for battle. Her runs turn into long-distance marches. She adds gym sessions. On the weekends, it's trips out to the mountains in Scotland and Wales. She studies gear, pores over mountaineering reports, learns how to handle ropes and carabiners. And somewhere between the runs and the office meetings, she puts a name to it. The office drains her energy. The mountains recharge her. This isn't about romance or some wild dream. It's physiology. Her whole body, her mind. They're craving altitude. Not a metaphorical climb up the corporate ladder, but a literal need to be high up, where the air is thin and cold, where there's no room for pretending. So, London becomes her turning point. Not because it's a bad city, but because this is where Klára gets it. She's not made for the corporate world. She's made for the mountains. And the moment she accepts that, everything shifts. It's 2003. Klára boards a plane for Tanzania, Kilimanjaro, 19,341 feet. Her first real altitude. She takes the meringue route. It's the so-called Coca-Cola route, known for being relatively easy. Thousands of tourists do it every year. But for Klára, this isn't a tourist trip. It's a test. She climbs, she feels her body kicking in. Her head is clear. The altitude isn't crushing her. If anything, it gives her this strange sense of lightness, like she's exactly where she's meant to be. The next year, 2004, Mont Blanc in the Alps, 15,774 feet. It's the classic route through the Gouter hut. This is different from Africa. Now it's rope travel, ice axes, you have to know your gear. Klára learns as she goes. No fancy climbing schools, no trainers. Just books, videos, advice from the pros. She soaks it all up. In 2005, Argentina. Aconcagua, 22,841 feet. This is serious stuff, the highest peak outside of Asia. She takes the long, grueling route through Plaza de Mulas, with multiple camps for acclimatization. And it's here that Klára realizes something huge. Her body adapts to altitude way faster than most people's. While everyone else is struggling with headaches and nausea, she's actually feeling pretty comfortable. And it's not about training, it's just genetics. Some people are born for high altitudes, something you can't really train. Coming down from Aconcagua, a thought sparks in her mind. What if I try 7,000 meters next? Maybe even 8. Can you imagine? Just 3 years ago, she was sitting in a London office, cranking out press releases. And now she's nearly 7 kilometers above sea level, daydreaming about the Himalayas. It's March 9th, 2006. Cho, OU. Klára is standing at over 8,200 meters. This is the 6th highest 8,000er in the world. It's her first time entering the death zone. That's what climbers call anything above 8,000 meters, where your body starts slowly dying. Right beside her is Tashi Tenzing, guide, Sherpa. And get this, the grandson of the legendary Tenzing Norgay, the man who, together with Edmund Hillary back in 1953, first set foot on Everest summit. Talk about symbolism. The grandson of a pioneer guiding a Czech woman on her first 8,000er. Klára is using supplemental oxygen, which is totally normal for commercial expeditions. But even with oxygen, a lot of people fall apart at this height. Splitting headaches, legs turning to jelly, lungs barely working. But she keeps going, steady, confident. Her body adapts to altitude so quickly that even seasoned climbers start to notice. For a 28-year-old rookie, that's almost unheard of. Cho OU becomes her ticket into the elite. But Klára gets it. This is just the beginning. Fast forward to May 16th, 2007. Exactly 14 months after Cho OU. Tibet. The north side of Everest. The route where the wind whips your face and the summit taunts you for days, hovering like a lighthouse on the horizon. Height, 8,848 meters, the roof of the world. Tashi Tenzing is her guide again. She's still using oxygen, but everything's different now. This isn't her first 8,000er. This one is the real test. Klára makes it to the top of the world, doing something no other Czech woman has ever done. Right then, she becomes the first woman from the Czech Republic to climb Everest. Back home in Prague, the media goes wild. TV, newspapers, radio, everyone is talking about her. Klára Kolouchova's name becomes a symbol of national pride. She isn't even down off the mountain yet, but people back home already see her as a hero. And here's what matters. She didn't climb as some wealthy client who just handed over $60,000 or $80,000. No corporate sponsors, no circus of a PR campaign. This was a humble, no-frills, old-school ascent. She's not buying her place in history. She's earning it. There's no euphoria on the way down. None of that childlike joy you get from tourists reaching the clouds for the first time. What she feels is different. A clear-headed, sober understanding. Ahead lies Kangchenjunga, K2, Annapurna, the kind of peaks where, historically, your chances of dying are actually higher than your chances of reaching the top. This isn't the touristy Everest we all see in photos. In this part of the world, every mountain claims lives almost every season, and each one has spent decades at the top of the world's most dangerous peaks lists. After Everest, Klára does something no one really expects. She puts her climbing career on hold. Like most people her age, her priorities shift. Her personal life comes first now. Her daughter Emma is born in 2008, and for Klára, it just makes sense to put the big expeditions on the shelf. A baby, a new sense of responsibility, a new role as a mom. Those 8,000-meter peaks kind of fade into the background. The mountains go quiet, for now. Fast forward to 2013. Klára marries Martin Kolich and builds a real home. The following year, they have a son, Kirill, 2 kids, a husband, a house, a sense of stability. She steps away from the mountains completely, focuses on her family, and heads back to office life. She becomes a consultant, even lands a job at McKinsey, one of the world's top consulting firms. It's the classic corporate path, the kind she once ran from back in London. But here's the thing. Her longing for the mountains doesn't disappear. It quiets down, hides in the background, but it's always there. Eventually, it comes roaring back, stronger than before. Klára tries to drown it out with work, with parenting, with home life. But the harder she tries to live the right way, the more it feels like that right life is actually suffocating her. Think about it. She's ticking every box our society calls success. Family, career, financial security. But inside, that sense of pressure only grows. Stability weighs down on her even more than any climb ever did. It's like a second version of herself is starting to take shape. Not office Klára, writing reports and doing school drop-offs, but climber Klára, the one for whom altitude feels like freedom. And as she gets older, those two sides of her start to clash. Her family can see it. Martin, her husband, gets it. Even the kids, as young as they are, can tell. Mom's not quite like the other moms. They all support her. But deep down, everyone knows how this story is going to end. It's not a question of if Klára will go back to the mountains. It's just a question of when. That moment, it's getting closer. 2013. Klára comes back, and she does it in style, in Alaska, on Denali, over 20,000 feet high. But she doesn't take the normal route. She goes for the West Rib, one of the toughest technical climbs on the mountain. She becomes the first Czech woman to complete it from start to finish. This isn't just another ascent. This is Klára sending a message, I'm back, and I mean business. That same year, she climbs Elbrus, over 18,000 feet, the highest point in Europe. It's part of the 7 Summits Challenge, climbing the tallest peak on each continent. Klára realizes she needs a goal, some structure. The 7 Summits program gives her both. By 2015, she's finished the whole thing. Karsten's Pyramid in Indonesia, Vinson Massif in Antarctica, Everest, already checked off. Denali, done. Elbrus, conquered. She'd already climbed Aconcagua and Kilimanjaro back in the 2000s. 7 continents, 7 summits. Complete. But here's what's even more important. Klára realizes she's not just some inspired office mom anymore. She's a world-class high-altitude climber. She doesn't come back to the mountains as a tourist with a backpack and a dream. She comes back as someone who can plan expeditions, size up risks, and lead people to the top. And here's where something really important happens. Klára learns how to switch gears between roles without any regrets. At home, she's a mom, a wife. She makes breakfast, takes the kids to school, helps with homework. But up in the mountains, she's a climber, cold, focused, ready to make tough calls. And she's no longer torn between these two worlds. She embraces both. It's not about searching for meaning anymore. This is just the life she chooses, deliberately. People start to notice. In the media, she becomes known as the woman who balances kids and extreme ambition. She turns into a role model for thousands of women who think motherhood means the end of personal dreams. Klára proves otherwise. You can be a mom, and you can stand on top of 8,000ers. Not instead of, along with. All 7 summits, checked off. But Klára realizes that's not enough. She needs a new goal, something bigger, scarier, the kind of thing that forces you to give absolutely everything, and she picks K2, 8,611 meters, the second highest mountain in the world, but easily the hardest and most dangerous. Climbers call it the Savage Mountain. 1 in 4 people who try for the summit never make it back. Compared to K2, Everest is just a walk in the park. It's 2016, the first attempt. Pakistan, the Karakoram. The Abruzzi Ridge, a classic route, but classic doesn't mean easy. Klára makes it up to Camp 3, around 7,300 meters, still about 1,300 meters below the summit. Everything seems to be going to plan, and then an avalanche wipes out the higher camp. The whole expedition is called off. Everyone heads back down. K2 remains untouched. Fast forward to 2018. Second try. Klára comes back. High camps again. Another round of acclimatization. More waiting for that perfect weather window. But the good weather never shows up. That summer on K2 goes down as one of the harshest in decades. Not a single team reaches the top. Everyone retreats. Klára heads down for a second time. 2 attempts, back to back. That's a huge mental blow. Imagine that. Climbing up to 7,000 meters twice, having to turn around both times, coming home empty-handed. But in an interview after her second attempt, she says something that ends up in every article about her. If I fail one more time, I won't come back. But I have to try. K2 becomes her personal Everest, an unfinished chapter. She knows she can't really move on until she conquers this mountain. All the while, there's family, kids, an office job. Yet K2 is the axis around which her grown-up climber identity spins. At home, she's a mom. At work, a consultant. But underneath, she's a woman who just can't let go of that summit. The Czech media call her the woman who never gives up. But the real breakthrough is still ahead. And that breakthrough comes in 2019, July 25th, 2019. Third time's the charm, Klára stands on the summit of K2, 8,611 meters. The Savage Mountain finally lets her pass. She's the first Czech woman ever to get there. This is a huge deal, big national news. But let's rewind. How did she actually do it? The 2019 season on K2 is rough. Weather windows are rare and ridiculously short. Most teams have already pulled out. Too risky, too unpredictable. But Klára stays. She waits for the second window. It's a risky call, but she's done the math. She joins Nirmal team, a Nepali mountaineer running this wild project called Project Possible, where he's trying to climb all 14 of the world's 8,000-meter peaks in just 7 months. Sounds impossible, right? But his team is absolutely solid. They're taking the classic route up Abruzzi Spur with oxygen. The ropes are set by Sherpas from one of the big-name companies. Klára climbs slowly, methodically. She's totally tuned into her body, watching her breath, step by step. And she makes it. The summit, the Czech flag, tears, 3 years of struggle, 2 failed attempts, and finally, success. But then, back home, things get tense. Czech climber Tomáš Petříček calls her out publicly, says she took reckless risks, claims she put the Sherpa team in danger, says her decision to stay was irresponsible. Klára keeps her cool, no drama, no apologies. She says the situation was calculated, that conditions had improved, and her decision was fully thought through. The fight eventually blows over. Petříček admits his emotions got the best of him. But honestly, this moment is important. It shows what Klára's really like. She's not reckless or impulsive. She's careful, strategic. She knows how to weigh risk and make the hard calls. Back in the Czech Republic, this climb changes everything for her. She's not just the woman who won't give up. Now she's the woman who didn't give up on K2. The media can't get enough. Interviews, documentaries, talks. With K2, Klára is officially in the top tier of European high-altitude climbers. But for her, it's not the finish line. It's just a new starting point. K2 isn't the end of the list. It's the beginning of an entire new series. May 15th, 2019. 2 months before K2. Klára's standing on the summit of Kangchenjunga, 8,586 meters, the third highest mountain on the planet. First Czech woman ever up there. She climbs via the southwest ridge with oxygen. Part of her acclimatization happens right there on the route, training for the next battle on K2. Kangchenjunga is one of the coldest, most remote peaks in the Himalayas. High death rate, wild, unpredictable weather. But Klára moves with confidence. Think about it. 2 8,000-meter summits in just 2 months. Kanchenjunga in May, K2 in July. The death zone becomes her workplace. 5 years go by. Klára doesn't slow down. April 13th, 2024. Nepal, Annapurna. 1. 8,091 meters. The deadliest peak on Earth. Historically, about 1 in 5 climbers never make it back. Avalanches, crumbling ice, rock falls, and weather that flips from calm to deadly in minutes. The 2024 season is brutal. The weather window is tiny. Hardly any time to acclimatize properly. Some climbers are so wiped out after their summit pushes that they get helicoptered straight out of the high camps. But Klára comes down on her own. Steady, no panic, no drama. Just pure focus and experience. Annapurna cements her reputation. Now everyone knows Klára is the kind of climber who keeps her head cool when things get dangerous. Just look at the list. Everest, K2, Kanchenjunga, Annapurna, 4 of the deadliest 8,000ers in the world, 4 mountains that have claimed dozens of lives, and Klára has stood on top of all of them. In the mountaineering world, people start comparing her to the strongest women in Europe, mainly for her willpower, her steadiness, and how she can handle the so-called death zone, that place up high where your body literally begins to die. Klára has joined a very small group of world-class high-altitude climbers, but there's still one more peak ahead, and that one will be the last. So, who is Klára as a mountaineer? What's her approach? She never tried to go full-on alpine style. There was never any romantic talk about going one-on-one with the mountain. She used supplemental oxygen without a second thought. On Cho Oyu back in 2006, on Everest in 2007, then on Kangchenjunga, K2, and Annapurna. For Klára, that was just a normal safety tool, not a questionable shortcut, just a practical decision. She never hid the fact that Sherpas were part of her climbs. In fact, she respected their work deeply and called them the backbone of the big mountains. But at the same time, she was totally capable of making her own decisions. Then comes 2024, Nanga Parbat. First attempt. Klára climbs higher than 6,000 meters, checks the conditions, sees avalanche risk, bad weather, unstable snow, and just calls it off. No drama, no regrets, just, this isn't the day, let's head back down. That's real maturity in the mountains. But here's the catch. Klára always thought of herself as cautious. She'd say she assesses risks, doesn't do reckless things. But if you look at it objectively, she went to places most people wouldn't even consider. K2, not once, but 3 times. Annapurna, with barely any acclimatization. Kangchenjunga just before K2, 2 huge peaks in just 2 months. Fear just meant something different to her. What's careful for Klára is crazy for everyone else. She even admitted it herself. My self-preservation instinct must be different. Otherwise, I wouldn't be climbing. Her style was a bit of a mix. She joined commercial expeditions, but made her own calls when it mattered most. She climbed with groups, worked with Sherpas, paid for logistics, but made the call herself. When to push on, when to turn around, when to wait out the weather. That ability to keep a cool head in tough moments. It's rare. Journalists and fellow climbers noticed it all the time. Most people lose it up high. Emotions take over. Fear, ambition, whatever. Klára stayed clear and rational. Take K2 in 2019. Klára waited for a second weather window. Not out of recklessness, but because she had weighed the odds and decided it was the right call. She was incredibly responsible. She never took blind risks. And yet, she went to places where the risk is sky high. Even if you do everything right. That's her style. Rational, cool, absolutely uncompromising. But Klára never climbed alone. Nobody does. Behind every mountaineer, there's a whole crew. Teachers, teams, the people who believe, the people who help, and the ones who stay at base camp, waiting. Klára's first real mentor was Tashi Tenzing. Yes, that Tashi, the grandson of the legendary Tenzing Norgay, the same man who, together with Edmund Hillary, was the first to reach the summit of Everest back in 1953. Tashi led Klára on Cho Oyu in 2006, then on Everest the next year. 2 climbs, 2 summits, 2 lessons in how the big mountains work. He taught her the most important thing: respect the altitude, respect the weather, respect your own body. Later on, Klára started working with Sherpa teams from 7 summit treks, on Kangchenjunga, on K2, and on Nanga Parbat in 2024 and 2025. For Annapurna in 2024, she teamed up with Satori Expeditions. These were commercial expeditions. Yes, they were organized groups. There were fixed ropes, oxygen bottles, all the logistics handled. But even with all that, Klára always made a lot of her own decisions. She chose her own pace. She decided when to turn back. She picked the attack day. She knew when to push on, when to call it off. That was her zone of independence, her responsibility. Back in 2019, an important partner came into the picture, Nirmal Purja. He's the legendary Nepali climber behind Project Possible, the guy who aimed to climb all 14 8,000ers in just 7 months. Absolutely wild goal, but his team was the best of the best. Klára joined him for the K2 summit push, and that really changed everything. Without that crew, without that perfect weather window, without syncing up with Nim's team, K2 might have stayed out of reach for her. Klára has always emphasized how much she respects the high-altitude Sherpas. She calls them the backbone of the big mountains. Without them, the Himalayas would pretty much be off limits. They fix the ropes, carry loads, set up camps, save lives. They're the ones who die out there more often than the clients. Klára absolutely got that, and she never hid how much her climbs depended on them. She really admired Babachiri Sherpa, one of the most famous Sherpas in the world. By the way, we actually have a video on our channel about this legendary guy. Her husband, Martin Kolouch, went with her on expeditions, not as a climber, but as support at base camps, especially during Nanga Parbat in 2024 and 2025. He was there, down below, waiting, keeping in touch, being there for her when she got back down. Imagine that. Your wife heads off to an 8,000er, you stay in a tent, listening to the radio, waiting for any updates, not knowing if she's coming back. Martin did that every time. Around Klára, this quiet but strong circle of supporters started to form. Friends, sponsors, readers of her books, people who truly believed in her journey. Not just random fans or big crowds, but a tight group. People who understood what she was doing and why. Klára never liked big teams or making a show of things. She preferred working with small, close-knit groups. Not for promo shots, not for Instagram, just for getting the job done. That's her style. Quiet, focused, effective. After Annapurna in April 2024, Klára set her sights on Dhaulagiri for the spring of 2025. It's the 7th highest 8,000er. But the climb just didn't work out. The weather, the conditions, the team, nothing lined up. So Dhaulagiri stayed unclimbed, at least for her. And Klára's focus shifted right back to Nanga Parbat, 8,125 meters, the 9th highest mountain in the world. People call it the Killer Mountain. It's one of the most dangerous peaks in the Himalayas. For Klára, this could be her 6th 8,000er. And it's not her first try. June 2024. She'd already been on Nanga Parbat before. She took the Kinshofer route, which is one of the classic lines. She got above 6,000 meters, checked things out, saw the avalanche risk, the bad weather, the sketchy snow. She called it off. That's how she climbs. Mature, rational, not stubborn, but calculated. But she comes back in 2025, and the conditions? Way worse. We're talking about an abnormally warm summer. The temperatures at altitude are way higher than usual. The snow's melting faster than normal. Most of the route is pretty much just bare ice. Can you even imagine that? Instead of snow-covered slopes, imagine giant sheets of ice. Crampons slip. Ice axes get stuck. The rocks are incredibly unstable. The ice is melting, and that sends rocks tumbling down. Every single day. Every single hour. Setting up the fixed ropes is a real struggle. The Sherpas are spending way more time and energy than usual. But the expedition is underway. June 17th, 2025. The team heads up to base camp. A few climbers. The Sherpa crew. Among them is Taramang Tamang, a seasoned high-altitude climber. Klára's husband, Martin Kolouch, stays at base camp. He's the support, the connection. He's waiting. The acclimatization is rough, but still, it's steady. They climb up to Camp 1, back down, rest, then up to Camp 2, then down again. Their bodies slowly get used to the altitude, inch by inch. By the end of June, all the camps are set up and ready. Camp 1 is around 4,900 meters, Camp 2 about 6,000, Camp 3 around 6,700, Camp 4 is at 7,300 meters. The ropes are in, the gear is in place. Oxygen canisters are spread out across the camps. Everything is ready for the big push. Even with all the risks, Klára stays motivated. This is her 6th 8,000er. It's a huge milestone in the history of Czech high-altitude mountaineering. Psychologically, this expedition just makes sense. It's the next step, a continuation of the journey she's been building for 10 years. This isn't some impulse or reckless gamble. It's a conscious decision. Klára knows the risks, she knows the conditions, she knows her limits, and she's ready to go. It's the evening of July 2nd, 2025. The team heads up to Camp 4 at around 72 to 7,400 meters. This is the last stop before the summit. The plan is simple. Spend the night at Camp 4, rest for a bit, then start the summit push around midnight. That's standard strategy. You climb at night so you can reach the top by sunrise and get back down before the sun heats up the slopes and the rocks start falling. Klára makes it to Camp 4, but suddenly something goes wrong. Her condition worsens. Fast. She's exhausted. Maybe she's suffering from hypoxia. Later, the official reports will use the phrase deteriorated health. But what does that actually mean? It means your body just stops listening. Your head feels heavy. Your breathing's off. You can't coordinate your movements. Maybe you've got a headache, nausea. Your legs feel weak. Let's be clear. Above 7,000 meters, your body is maxed out, even with oxygen. Every cell is basically screaming, "Get down." Klára realizes she can't go on. The summit is still about 1,000 meters away. A few hours of brutal climbing. She's so close. Her 6th 8,000er. The goal she came here for a second time. But she makes the call. She turns around. Before the summit push even starts. She doesn't even try to go higher. That's the right call. But it's also unbelievably hard. Just picture it. You prepare for 2 years. You spend months acclimatizing. You climb through all the camps. You reach the final point before the summit. And you say, "Nope, I'm turning back." This totally lines up with the way Klára's been approaching things in recent years. She refuses to push through death. She doesn't ignore her body's signals. She doesn't put ambition above safety. Klára listens to herself and makes the grown-up decision. She starts her descent that same evening. She heads down with Sherpa Taramang Tamang, in the darkness. That's just standard in the Himalayas. When you start to feel worse at high altitude, the only thing that really matters is getting down as fast as you can. Don't wait for morning. Don't rest up at camp. Every minute you spend up high is just draining more and more of your strength. So, you move at night. We're talking pitch black, anywhere from around 10 at night to maybe 3 in the morning. Picture the scene, darkness everywhere, these super narrow couloirs tucked between steep rocks, patches of ice with no good snow left. They all just melted away during the day. Under your boots, bare ice, rocks, ready to come loose any time. Your headlamp lights up maybe a few feet in front of you, and outside that little circle is just pure black nothing. You're exhausted. Your head's all foggy, legs barely doing what you tell them. Every step is a fight, and the big battle, it's happening in your head, between the part of you that says, "I should have made it," and just the harsh reality that your body can't take much more, between ambition and basic survival instinct, between who you want to be and what your body can actually handle. Klára, she makes the rational choice. She doesn't blame herself, doesn't beat herself up for not being strong enough. She just keeps heading down, slow and steady. Full focus, step, another step. Check the safety line, unclip the carabiner, clip it back in, another step. This is her second time turning around on Nanga Parbat. In 2024, she turned around above 6,000 meters. In 2025, she turned back at 7,300 meters. 2 years, 2 attempts, 2 turnarounds. Klára's got that rare skill. She knows when to stop, even at risky points. Most climbers can't do that. Their ambition drowns out their fear. The summit blinds them to common sense. But she could. And that decision might have saved her life, if not for what happened next. It's around 4 a.m. on July 3rd, 2025. Klára and Sherpa Taramang Tamang have been making their way down for hours, passing through a zone just above Camp 2, about 6,000, maybe 6,200 meters. A few hundred more meters and they could finally rest up in a tent, then later head down to base camp. Klára's moving slowly, really worn out, but she's methodical, checking every step, carefully unclipping and clipping back into the ropes. Everything by the book, and then, on another sketchy bit of rock and ice, she slips. This is the moment where everything goes wrong. Suddenly, she's off the fixed line. What does that mean? Maybe this section didn't have a rope set up. Maybe she was switching lines and she just wasn't clipped in for a second. Maybe she was moving around a damaged section of rope. Nobody really knows. Nobody saw that exact moment. But the result is the same. She falls. She falls off the edge, dropping hundreds of meters down through those couloirs, over rock steps, somewhere between Camp 2 and Camp 1. Sherpa Tamang is 40 to 50 meters behind her. That's pretty standard for glacier travel. Not too close to get in each other's way, but not so far you lose sight of your partner. He hears a sharp scream. Then, this huge impact, so loud it sounds like an explosion. That noise? Later, the Pakistani media are going to run with this story. Oxygen tank exploded. The headlines spread everywhere. But later, 7 summit treks make it official. No explosion. That just didn't happen. Tamang is yelling into the darkness, shining his headlamp down, but it's just black emptiness. He can't go down there in the dark. It's way too dangerous, way too steep. No rope, that's a death sentence. So he heads back to base camp. It's the morning of July 3rd, 2025. We're at Nanga Parbat base camp. Sherpa Tarman Tamang arrives with a message. Klára has fallen. He heard her scream. He heard the impact. But in the darkness, there was nothing he could do. Within moments, the news is on the radio. The expedition leader, the other climbers, Klára's husband, Martin Kolouch, who's waiting below. That same day, the Pakistani authorities and the Alpine Club Pakistan make it official. They issue a public statement. Czech climber Klára Kolouchová is missing after a fall while descending Nanga Parbat. The search is on. On July 4th, the Pakistani army sends in a helicopter, and that's a big deal. It's a military chopper, flown by experienced pilots who know the Himalayas like the back of their hand. They cover the area between Camp 1 and Camp 2, as well as the Bunar Base Camp Zone, around 5,000 meters up. They follow the GPS coordinates from the team, possible fall routes, snow gullies, ice cliffs, rock faces. They fly low and slow, scanning every inch of the slope. Nothing. Not a trace. No visual contact. Nothing at the coordinates. Think about that for a second. A helicopter, high-tech equipment, skilled people, and yet not a single sign. It's like the mountain just swallowed someone whole, with no trace left. From July 5th to 7th, the search moves onto the ground. Rescue teams and high-altitude porters comb the gullies from below, on foot, using binoculars, trying to find anything at all. Scraps of clothing, gear, a mark in the snow, and still nothing. The route is especially dangerous during these days. Rock falls, almost non-stop. It's been an unusually warm summer, so the slopes are unstable. Bare patches of ice, broken terrain, where avalanches or massive rock slides have recently swept through. Every step, the rescuers are risking their own lives. But the result is the same, no sign of her. The search is called off, officially. It's just too dangerous, and the weather is turning. Now, the focus shifts to trying to figure out what actually happened. The official story comes together quickly, and everyone is on the same page. 7 summit treks, the expedition organizers, Alpine Club Pakistan, the governing body, Klára's fellow climbers, her family. They all agree it was an accidental fall on a rocky, icy section during the descent, in the dark. No argument, no mistake, just a tragic accident. Tough terrain, darkness, exhaustion. Early on, there was a rumor that an oxygen tank exploded, but 7 summit treks set the record straight. That was a misinterpretation by the first Pakistani media reports, who misunderstood what a witness said. Yes, there was a loud sound, something like an explosion, but it was actually the sound of a metal oxygen tank slamming into the rocks during the fall. Not a blast, just the metal crunching against stone at high speed. Still, the big question remains, why was she off the ropes? And there isn't a clear answer. There are a few theories. The first one is that the section simply wasn't fixed. Sometimes the Sherpas don't have time to set a rope, or maybe it broke, or it's one of those technical spots where you just can't put protection. Another theory. She was in the process of switching her carabiner. When you're moving along the fixed ropes, you have to unclip and reclip as you go around knots or transfer from one rope to another. for a second or two, you're not attached to anything. A third theory? She might have been stepping around another climber, or maybe a damaged rope. When you're up there and someone ahead is moving too slow, or the rope looks worn out, you've got to go around. And for that moment, you're outside the safety lines. No one really knows for sure what happened. Nobody saw it. Tamming was walking about 40 to 50 meters behind her, in the dark. He didn't see it. He only heard something. Everyone else was either farther up or farther down the mountain. No one was close enough. Klára's family never disputed the official version. Her husband, Martin, who was back at base camp, accepted the explanation. The Sherpas said there was nothing suspicious. Pakistani authorities closed the case as an accident. Everyone agreed. It was just a tragic mishap. The terrain, the darkness, the sheer exhaustion after a brutal descent, the effects altitude has on your body. Just one wrong step, one slick patch, 1 second outside the ropes, and that's all it takes. No conspiracy, nothing hidden, no one to blame. Just the mountain, and it doesn't forgive mistakes, not even the smallest ones. Not even for those who've summited K2 and Annapurna. Not even for those who always seem to make the right call. The mountain doesn't choose who it takes. It claims whoever happens to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, without enough protection. And this time, it was Klára. So, what was happening in the world in that moment? It was July 3rd, 2025. People in the Czech Republic woke up to heartbreaking news. Klára Kolouchová had died on Nanga Parbat. TV broadcasts were interrupted. Newspapers rushed out special editions. Online headlines just kept coming. Legendary mountaineer passes away. First Czech woman on Everest dies climbing Nanga Parbat. Tragedy in the Himalayas. Klára Kolouchová lost on an 8,000er. It was the biggest story in sports that day. Not just mountaineering, sports, period. Klára wasn't just any athlete. She was a national icon. The woman who summited Everest in 2007, K2 in 2019, Kanchenjunga also in 2019, Annapurna in 2024, 4 8,000-meter peaks, 4 of the world's deadliest summits. Think about that for a second. For a single country, for a single climber, that's a nearly impossible feat. The Czech Republic is a small country. It's not Nepal, not Italy, not France with their century-old mountaineering traditions. Still, Klára made it into the elite of high-altitude mountaineering. International climbers called her a trailblazer, a pioneer, a woman who went where only a handful had ever gone. Radek Jaroš, one of the strongest Czech alpinists, said in an interview, "She showed that a woman can go where most men are too afraid to, and she did it with a clear head, making smart, deliberate choices." Climbers around the world admired her drive, how she balanced motherhood and extreme climbing, her ability to make the hard calls, turning back when it mattered, pushing forward when she could. After K2 and Kanchenjunga, Klára became part of the European Mountaineering Hall of Fame, right there with the strongest women of the Himalayas. Not a tourist, not just a dreamer, a top-level high-altitude climber. In the Czech Republic, she became the symbol of women's mountaineering, mentioned alongside the country's greatest alpinists, Radek Jaroš, Libor Uher, Marek Holacek. These are the men who spent decades shaping the world of Czech mountaineering, and then there's Klára, the only woman among them. She's the one who broke through where only men had gone before. Her journey even made it to the screen. In 2020, a documentary called K2 My Own Way came out. It's the story of 3 tries, 2 failures, and a third, final push, where she finally made it to the top. After that, her name grew even bigger, not just among climbers, but with regular folks too. She gave a talk at TEDx Prague Women, sharing what it's really like to mix motherhood with high-altitude adventures, how to be a mom and also a mountaineer. The audience was hooked, hanging on every word. She's written 2 books. The first, Himalayan Diary, came out in 2008 after Everest. It's about her first steps in the big mountains. The second, It's Windy Up There, was published in 2022 and dives into climbing K2, Kangchenjunga, Annapurna. It's about climbing with the maturity that comes with experience. Both books were recognized in the Czech Republic, not just as sports stories, but as deeply personal confessions. People started calling her Hurricane. That's the vibe she gave off. Energy, drive, always in motion, a surge of emotion and strength. Her story is all about character, discipline, never giving up, even when K2 shut her down twice in a row, coming back, and trying again. But there's another side to her story too, the price that sometimes has to be paid, even by the strongest. Because the mountains don't care about your achievements. They don't care how determined you are. They don't care how many times you've turned back or made the right call. The mountains only care about one moment, one step, 1 second. And if you're in the wrong place at the wrong time, that's it. For the climbing community, Klára will always be remembered as someone who gave everything to the mountains, not half, not just a piece of herself, everything. She lived it honestly, right to the very last step. She never betrayed who she was, never compromised, never took the easy way out. She chose the mountains, and the mountains chose her too, forever. Klára Kolouchová stayed on Nanga Parbat, somewhere between 5,000 and 6,000 meters up, maybe in a couloir, under the snow, or on the rocks. Her body became part of the mountain, just like so many other climbers who never came back. But her name is still down here, with us, in books, in documentaries, in the memories of thousands who saw her as an example. The first Czech woman on Everest, the first on K2, the first on Kangchenjunga, a woman who proved that motherhood and 8,000-meter peaks can go hand in hand, a woman who never gave up, who lived life her own way, right up to the last step, the last breath, the last second on the slopes of Nanga Parbat.